I gotta say, this is awful that Diddy owes his life to Mark Agnifilo, literally his life, because he could have gotten life in prison were it not for Mark, a defense lawyer, who had a brilliant strategy. And Diddy screwed him over when he hired this videographer to chronicle his life without telling Mark Agnifilo that when Diddy and Mark were on the phone, this videographer was recording what Mark clearly expected to be an attorney-client privileged relationship. Now, it is true that the client holds that privilege, the lawyer doesn't, but Mark's clear expectation was that this was a private conversation. These were private conversations, and that he and Diddy could talk openly, and Mark could talk to Diddy not just as a client, but as a person, and try to guide him in a time leading up to his arrest. And unbeknownst to Mark Agnifilo, Diddy has got this guy recording the conversation as he's sitting there saying, "You are screwing this up, you are messing up this case, we're losing." And knowing that that's on tape. And it's almost like he's performing for the camera and not telling Mark what's going on. And the really enraging part about it is that Mark Agnifilo won this case for Diddy with legal strategy. It wasn't just an accident that this jury that had heard all of this in the news before the trial voted not guilty on all the serious charges. It was Mark Agnifilo that did that. Yet Diddy secretly records this guy and embarrasses him. And yeah, you could say, well, Diddy never expected that it would end up being broadcast somewhere else. Well, okay, but Diddy was planning on using it, or he wouldn't have had it recorded in the first place. So it's just really, really unfair. And I know that in a way this sounds crazy, that I'm getting so upset about Diddy, and yet there's video of Diddy beating Cassie. Well, that's horrendous, but that doesn't mean you can't look at something else as well. And I just think, as a lawyer, I just think this is just so outrageous that he would do something like this, and not even understanding what Agnifilo's legal theory was. Because I will tell you that when we did our first documentary on Diddy, which was 8 months before the trial, Mark Agnifilo said to me on camera that he is going to tell this jury that this was a successful black man that prosecutors were trying to take down because they couldn't get into his bank accounts because they were clean, and he couldn't deal with they couldn't deal with taxes because he wasn't committing tax fraud. So they go into his bedroom. And that's what Mark Agnifilo said 8 months before. And he goes into the trial and he essentially wins that argument. Whether you believe it or not, a jury that sat through the whole thing, they believed it, and ultimately they convicted him on this BS Mann Act thing. So Diddy won that case. And one of the reasons he won the case is something that Agnifilo got criticized for. That when he did the documentary with me, he was making a joke about the baby oil. Remember, he said, "Oh, well, you know, I didn't know he bought in bulk. He must have bought 1,000 bottles at cost."
Not just a legal mess, not simply controversy. People are forced to stop scrolling and pay attention to something more profound and ugly. Because things cease to be under control when someone at the top begins betraying their own people, particularly the one who is meant to keep them safe when everything else collapses. Things start to spiral out of control at that point. And that's precisely what appears to be taking place at the moment. On paper, the story appears to be straightforward. A significant individual, a significant legal issue already looming over them. Then all of a sudden, rumors that something went wrong behind the scenes begin to surface. It has to do with the defense, not the case or the charges. Nobody anticipated that part. Because the defense is crucial in circumstances such as these. The shield is that. That's the plan. That is the final line that separates complete collapse from damage control. It's not only poor publicity when that relationship begins to deteriorate. It's a signal that something isn't.
And a lot of people just slammed him for that and said, how dare you? You're being disrespectful. The baby oil is the smoking gun in this case. Agnifilo knew all along that the baby oil was Diddy's best defense, because when Agnifilo got before that jury in closing argument, he looked at them and he said, well, the feds came in with their armor and artillery and guns, and what did they do? They got 1,000 bottles of baby oil off the streets. Ooh, he said, the streets are safer now, and the jury laughed, and that laugh told Agnifilo he should keep going on that, and that the trial itself was absurd because the baby oil was really the punchline to the whole thing. So Agnifilo developed a legal strategy early on, and he carried it out brilliantly. Whether you like the result or not, you got...
Well, Diddy is just a working class stiff while he's at Fort Dix.
So when you're at a prison and somebody says, you read any good books lately, Diddy is the answer.
He's the guy to go to, because we got video of him at Fort Dix reporting for work in the library, where he is making recommendations and handing out different movies and books for his fellow inmates.
I'm really fascinated just by the library
But
itself.
you're seeing him here. This is him reporting to work, taking off his jacket,
Yeah.
taking off his scarf, and settling in for a day on the job.
It looks like a public school library.
Yeah.
It's
This was the chapel, and this is the media library in the chapel, which is where Diddy's currently working. He's working in a Life Connections program, which is an 18-month program that helps rehab people and get them closer to spirituality, to charity groups, and with that, it will shorten his sentence. But in this media library, he helps inmates with religious material, rent out movies, that kind of stuff. You see him pushing a
really
cart
interesting
with a TV on it.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the laundry room when he first got there.
Yeah,
This got to be
his first
This got to
assignment.
be a promotion.
Yeah.
It feels like a promotion. It feels like maybe he tried the lunchroom and put in a request for something different.
Yeah, it does
I mean,
believe
he is a
it does
media
sound like
mogul.
he used maybe possibly some connections to get a better job.
So here's my question. I mean, that's the story.
Yeah.
My question is this. So Diddy had a certain persona before he got in all this trouble. And now he looks very different, very much older.
Yes.
When he gets out,
Does he?
Yes.
Does he join Hair Club for Men?
no, the Just for Men Club.
Just
he
for
still
Men?
has hair.
I don't know what it's called. I mean, you tell me. What? I'm sorry.
I mean,
Just
every
for
other
Men
photo,
Club.
this is the first we've seen him without that hat on, and the first we've seen actual footage of his hair. So I feel like he's not proud of it. He wears that hat a lot. So I
No,
feel
we
like-
saw him
Also, it's
without.
cold.
We saw him without a hat.
We've seen him
No,
without it, but also it was cold with the photos we had before he was out in the yard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Could have been cold, but
So what does he do?
what does he do?
Yeah,
I think he
does he
dyes
or
it.
doesn't he?
I think he
I
does.
mean, that's 2 years, 2.5 years from now.
I know. I'm just asking.
I don't know what the hell he's gonna do.
I mean,
Guess it depends on what
you've
it's-
been public relations adjacent, dealing with all
Right.
sorts of people for
It depends
years.
on what he wants to do when he gets out. Is he going to try to get back into show business? Is he going to be actively involved with artists? Then yeah, then he might. Depend.
I was just,
don't know.
I don't know. I was just curious about that.
Keeping itself together as it ought to. Let's now dissect this in a way that no one else has. It takes time for legal teams to disintegrate. These are deliberate, regulated settings. Every word has a measurement. With the stakes this high, every action is calculated. Therefore, you have to ask the obvious question. Why? If there's even the slightest indication that the person at the center of it all did something that can be interpreted as treachery. When you're already under strain, why take the chance of undermining your own defense? And because pressure alters people, this is the response that people are reluctant to express aloud. Not just ordinary pressure, either. Knowing that everything you've constructed could collapse at any time puts you under a lot of pressure. Not only does that type of pressure reveal cracks, but it also makes them. The details that are now circulating are disorganized and contradictory. Some claim it has to do with poor communication. Some claim it has to do with information being handled improperly. The darker angle is another. The notion that confidence was somewhat betrayed could be handled.
Treated there. Is this something that we're going to keep an eye on, Diddy's mental health behind bars? I think so. And obviously, we haven't seen him, but your colleague Elizabeth has reported that, he looks like he's lost some weight and he has some more gray and white hairs. I think it's taken a toll on him. And I think that he expected for some reason that he would be out on bond. And obviously that hasn't happened. There were 3 different bail applications that were denied by 3 different judges, and ultimately they withdrew their appeal. So now that it's hitting him that Diddy's going to be in custody at least until May 2025, I think he's just having a tough time coming to terms with it. Because like you said, here's someone that had multiple private jets, homes in New York, Miami, Los Angeles, and all of a sudden his only home is his prison cell, and he's not getting the Christmas dinner with his family that he had. And we all saw the video of him having to spend his birthday in prison as well.
You talked about the bail that had been denied 3 separate times, and a lot of people are saying maybe Diddy did have this meltdown because he expected at this point, heading into 2025, he would be back at home, at least on house arrest. You also mentioned how his team has withdrawn their appeal. Why do you think that is? They just kind of accepted that Diddy's going to be in jail until at least the jury trial?
I think they saw the writing on the wall and the fact that, Judge Subramanian probably be the best judge just because he's a Democratic appointee. He doesn't have a criminal background as defense attorney or a prosecutor. So here's not someone that has a really pro-prosecution perspective. He considered this bail application for 2 hours and he still denied it. And normally when a district judge or a magistrate judge hears a bail motion, it's a de novo standard, which means for the first time. That means the previous application, the denials, they don't have any precedential impact. But when you go up on appeal, Sierra, that changes. An appellate court can only reverse a lower court's decision on bail if it's an abuse of discretion. So they really have to defer to that lower court. So the chances of the bail application being granted on appeal were less because of the different standard. And also, we know the application has gotten worse because of Diddy's own conduct while he's in prison. We've talked about how he's used other inmates' pack numbers and he's made these 3-way calls allegedly trying to intimidate witnesses. So not only do you have the bail denied because he's a risk of flight or danger to the community, but also because he's trying to obstruct justice and affect the integrity of the proceedings.
A lot going on even behind bars for Diddy. I know we talked, you and I believe, about those allegations that he was using other inmates' phone calls or their lines, you just mentioned it, to talk about things so that prosecutors couldn't listen in. I'm sure that federal prosecutors are still keeping a very close eye on P. Diddy, his communication with the outside world, as it were. Do you think they're going to use any of this information at the coming trial?
I do, because if you're a prosecutor, you have to anticipate the defense in the case. And the defense in this case is clear that the sexual contact happened, but it was consensual. So Diddy's defense team is going to do everything they can to convince the jury that even though the freak-offs happened, these were consensual sexual acts by adults. So how can they do this? They can do it through cross-examination to try to show that the victims who are testifying, they're lying. They can try.
In circumstances such as these, timing is never arbitrary. If something similar is occurring at this point, it indicates that something changed behind the scenes, such as fear, internal conflicts, or new developments. And the only thing that can cause even the most powerful people to behave erratically is fear. Because people don't always make the best decisions when they feel cornered. Even if it causes turmoil later, they make the fastest one that seems in control at the time. And that may be just what is happening. This is when things get even more intense. There is typically a pattern to legal disputes: allegation, reaction, defense, plan, and conclusion. However, that trend is broken when the defense itself is involved in the dispute. And anything can happen if the pattern is broken. People are paying more attention than ever because of this. This is different, not because it's new. This has a degree of unpredictability that wasn't before present.
Emotional for them, or very difficult to talk about on a public stage. Do you think that's something that the defense is really going to focus on?
I think so. We know, at least in the civil complaints, one of the defense strategies has been to out the victim. Some of them want to remain anonymous, right? And the defense in almost every case has filed a motion to unmask the identity of the accusers, because they think on the defense side that maybe people will be more hesitant to come and talk about their sexual assault or sexual abuse at a very public trial. It's hard for victims of abuse. So I do think the defense is banking on that. And we know that some of these acts happened years, sometimes decades ago. So they're going to point out inconsistencies in any statements that they're making and argue that this shows that they're lying. And we've already seen it with a couple of the victims who have given statements already to the media. One was an interview with CNN. Another victim gave an interview with NBC. That victim, of course, being the Alabama woman who accused both Diddy and Jay-Z. And after those interviews, the reporters and the media outlets saw some inconsistencies, things that were incorrect in terms of maybe the dates or the locations where things happened. And I think the defense is going to use that to say, well, these people aren't mistaken, outright lying. And the reason they're lying is they want fame, they want money. So we're going to see a very aggressive cross-examination in this case here.
The story that you brought up about Jane Doe, the woman who's accusing Diddy and Jay-Z from back in the year 2000 when she was 13 years old, that one's huge because a judge in that case just ruled she could remain Jane Doe. So for now, at least, we don't know her name. If that's the case for some of these people that the government is going to call, how will Diddy's team prepare for cross-examination if they're not sure exactly who they are or what the experience was?
It's a little bit different in remaining anonymous in a civil case. Ultimately, if a case does go to trial, that victim will have to take the stand and testify in a public courtroom. Now, with respect to what the government is going to do in the criminal case, right? The government is not going to call more than 100 victims. That just doesn't make sense, right? The government is going to pick maybe their 5, 10 best victims. Obviously, we know the best of all is going to be Cassie Ventura, just because of the video, and she was with Diddy for more than a decade. So she's their star witness. But after that, you want some other victims who are telling the same story of physical and sexual violence. So they're going to want victims that they think are telling consistent cases, victims that won't be beat up too much on cross-examination. Maybe that's a bad pun to use, but someone that can withhold the very aggressive attacks. I mean, we've seen just the filings in these cases, how aggressive both Combs and Jay-Z's lawyers have been when it comes to going after these victims. So you want to make sure that if you're a prosecutor, hey, this is someone that's going to hold up, because the entire case really comes down to this victim testimony. I mean, obviously, to the extent that there's video evidence, that's great. That's the best of all, because video doesn't lie. But we're talking about sex acts that happen behind closed doors. So we really need the individuals who participated in that to come and tell their story to the jury. So I think the prosecution, like I said, is going to have maybe 5 to 10 of their best witnesses. So they're going to have to disclose those witnesses to the defense and any prior statements that they've made. Obviously, there's one-way disclosure.
And unpredictability is risky since it implies that no one can truly foretell what will happen next. Not the general public, not the media, and perhaps not even the participants themselves. At that point, stories begin to take shape more quickly than facts. Some claim that this is an indication of desperation, while others claim that it's a well-thought-out maneuver that appears disorganized from the outside. There are, however, many who believe that this is only the start of a far larger chain reaction. Because what else is at risk if one component of the defense fails? The true question is that. And so far, no one has a definitive response. However, here is what we do know. These kinds of situations don't end lightly. They intensify, they change, and they reveal things that were never supposed to be seen. These stories proceed like that. You already know that there won't be clarity if you've been observing trends like this throughout the years. More chatter, more leaks, more conjecture, more parts of a puzzle that might or might not ever fit together. However, each new component modifies the image, even if only little. Additionally, the image doesn't appear stable at the moment. It appears to be something that is changing in real time and is no longer entirely under control. People aren't only observing a disagreement, which is what makes this so captivating. They are observing a situation in which the standard rules may not apply, the result is unpredictable, and the next action might either stabilize the situation or make it 10 times worse. That's the tension. This is the reason why, unlike other stories, this one isn't going away. Even if they don't want to acknowledge it, individuals are compelled to keep checking for updates as it develops slowly and uncomfortably. Because everyone understands in their hearts that this is not finished. Not even near. If anything, it seems like this is the exact moment before everything either breaks apart or comes together. And given the current state of affairs, it might go any way. And it's that ambiguity that keeps this tale alive.